Welcome to Sugar Pills, a practical guide to self-care, where your host, writer, actor, and producer Candy Washington helps you live a more joyful life with a cheeky dash of pop culture news. Be sure to subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and join the conversation on Instagram at Candy Washington. Let's go!
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. As always, I'm your host, Candy Washington, and I cannot wait to help you lead a more joyful life. But before we dive into today's episode of Sugar Pills, a practical guide to self-care, be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel if you're watching on YouTube, and also be sure to subscribe, rate, and review if you're listening on one of our podcast platforms. Don't forget that your journey to self-love and self-worth is always better with a little bit of support, so be sure to check out the show notes and the description box where we have courses, coaching, newsletters, merchandise, all of it down there. I also have some really yummy freebies for you guys, so be sure to check out everything down below. And of course, don't forget to share this video, share this podcast with someone that you think might find value in it, or someone that you might be able to have a good conversation with around the content that we share. And with that, let's dive in. So today we have Gianna Biscontini with us, and I'm so excited to chat with her. I know that, manifestation has really boomed in the last couple of years, and it'll be good to kind of talk about, what's the fluff and what's the real meat of the situation. And she is a behavior scientist and lifestyle design coach. She's also the author of keynote, a guide to wild, unencumbered freedoms. I mean, I'm here for it. And she's also the founder of the cultural analytics company Work Well. So welcome, Gianna. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely. So do you want to share with us a little bit about your background, what led you to writing keynote, and everything else?
Sure. So I'm a board-certified behavior analyst. I grew up, watching people since I was 2, just really wondering what made them do what they were doing. I was so enthralled with human behavior since I can remember. And so, it's really just been a circuitous journey since. I've worked in healthcare with children with autism. I've written for a bunch of outlets. I obviously have penned a book on gendered societal norms, and I'm starting the entrepreneurial journey about 5 years ago. Everything is really just summed up in me following my bliss, my journey, what lights me up from the inside. For all the human design nerds out there, manifesting generator. So a lot of gas break, like pop off like a firecracker whenever I get an idea. So just really created the freest, most fulfilling life possible.
I love that. And so what came up for me when you were talking is really curiosity, right? You're curious as a young child about why people do what they do, and really putting like a meaning to it, or even like a system or a structure. Almost you can I'm just riffing on what came up while you were talking, almost to be able to predict, right? Because if you can understand why, then maybe you can predict the next move, and that kind of keeps us safe. If we understand why people do things, then we can predict when and if they will repeat that behavior, and then we know how to be prepared, right? And I think I love that because curiosity really was at the crux of like my self. Like, you do other people's behavior, I was doing my own behavior, and I was curious of, why do I do what I do? Why do these patterns keep emerging? Why does this keep happening? So I love that, and I think that's such a compassionate way to approach any type of either healing journey or any type of thing, is from a place of curiosity. Because sometimes we think it's judgment or criticism or blame, but to be curious about it, to me, really infuses compassion, like being compassionate around the process. So I absolutely love that. And you said about, and I want to say this correctly, the gender normative or the gender questioning about it. Do you want to speak more to that? Because I loved reading in your bio, you're like, when I wanted a boyfriend, he would appear. But then you're like, but maybe I want a girlfriend. And then that, and then the sort of awakening around, identity and sexuality and freedom. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's really to your point of coming from a point of curiosity. And if you're coming from a point of curiosity,
Yeah.
you can also exercise this like Buddhist concept of non-attachment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're coming from a point of internal energy and curiosity, whatever you find is just okay. As a scientist, we understand bias. And so when we're running these little mini experiments in our own lives or with clients or whatever, we're really unattached to those outcomes. And so I try not to bring too much science into my life because it's frigid and it takes the magic away. And I'm very ephemeral and gypsy style sometimes.
Yeah.
But I do love that process and systems thinking. And so when I am excavating and exploring and being curious, I can look at it from a point of maybe I do want a girlfriend. I've never thought about that before. I've just kind of been on the hamster wheel of, well, I'm a woman, so I was raised that women end up with men. And then I'm like, but that's not a thing anymore. I don't really have to subscribe to that.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of, as they say, as the kids say now, like click unsubscribe to whatever, to whatever you want. And I think it's really fulfilling once you get past the uncomfortable, how is everybody else going to feel about it? These gender societal norms of, well, it's okay for a man to do that, but as a woman, I can't. You start to just really question. And it's not, I try not to question with force. Fuckless is a really raw book.
Yeah.
But I always tell people your fucklessness, your approach to your life can be whatever you want. It can be this kick the door down, inspired, like angry, whatever. Or it can be a really gentle, like, yeah, I'm not going to do that anymore. And that's okay. And I don't have to mean it to anybody else and anything in between. Right. And so two of my top values are exploration and creativity. And so
I love that.
Now that's what I do, right? I excavate and explore, and then, I've got this information, whether it's about myself or the lifestyle design clients that I have. And it's really that process of uncovering from a non-judgmental place. I do use meditation quite a bit in my sessions, so that you are coming from a place of non-judgment. So you don't meet that truth with like force and like, nope, I don't like how that sounds. Nobody else is going to like that. I'm going to shove that away. You can just kind of receive it like a gift. It is. And then we can move on and, okay, what are we designing? What are we creating from that? And that's everything to me.
No, I absolutely love that. So many, if you see me writing, I always like write down little nuggets that come to me when I'm interviewing fabulous people like yourself, because I want to soak everything in. So a couple of things came up, and this is so juicy and so good. So when you were talking about attachment, what really came up is when we are attached to something, we actually disempower ourselves because we pre-describe a meaning to it. If you're attached to this particular outcome, this particular way, it means this. So if it doesn't manifest or result or whatever it is in this particular way, then there's a sense of lack or failure, not good enoughness, it didn't work out, all of that stuff, because we put so much pressure and control and manipulation on it has to be this way. But when you come from the place of non-attachment, like you're saying, like the Buddhist non-attachment, you actually free yourself up to just sort of have like equanimity, like it's going to come out, it is what it is. And then when it comes out, then I'm actually empowered to decide what it means. Like, oh, this, like, for example, if your boyfriend or girlfriend, right, breaks up with you, if you are attached to this relationship has to work out, because if this relationship doesn't work out, it means I'm unlovable, not good enough, blah, 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 everybody leaves. But if you're not attached and you're like, you know what, this is a relationship and I'm going to see where it goes, and I'm open to knowing that a force bigger than me and me with me kind of knows how to guide me. People come in, people come out, and say that boyfriend or girlfriend breaks up with you or leaves, you can say, hey, well, maybe this is just opening up the space for someone who's actually meant for me to come in. Or maybe I'm actually supposed to be alone during this time. Maybe there's a reason why I'm supposed to be finding out who I am, being independent, whatever the case is. But when you go into any situation attached to a particular outcome, you sort of disempower a greater meaning to it, a greater what it could be. So I absolutely love that you talked about that. And then also I love that you have like your core values of like creativity and excavation. I think we all should have those sort of like pillars within us that are like our guiding systems. And then when you were talking about fuckless, I love that because on my personal journey of getting over being very codependent, I was a super codependent person, like your typical codependent person, 100%. And when you said that, I was like, oh, wow. Like I kind of could say like that was my journey to like giving 0 fucks because I gave so many fucks because the fucks that I was giving was so attached to my self-worth. It was so attached to the value I gave to myself. So I gave so many fucks because I was earning my value and my worth rather than intrinsically knowing I'm already worthy, I'm already valuable, I'm already deserving, I'm already lovable. I don't have to do, show, or prove anything. So I don't actually have to give a fuck.
Yeah,
because I'm already enough. So I love that. I absolutely love that. And then you're talking about lifestyle design. Do you want to share with us like what's your definition of lifestyle design? How do you work with your clients, and like some things that we can do to sort of, you know, be more aware and intentional with designing the life that we want?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so it's funny when I put fuckless out, people were like, well, how are you using this book for your business? And after I wrote it, I was like, oh, I can totally use this in lifestyle design, but it didn't click for me. And then I thought, well, this is just what I've been doing my whole life. And now in my work, and as a behavioral scientist in healthcare and everything. And so
Yeah.
Lifestyle design to me, and this is kind of the definition that I've created over the last year or so, because people are like, oh, you're a life coach, or oh, you're this or that. And it's like, not really. I think there's like a certain level of expertise that lifestyle designers need. And it's because of that word design. Like behavioral science is a way of thinking, right? And if you can learn that way of thinking and learn the order of things, then it changes your perspective. You can never unsee the science of why we do what we do, right? Or you can never unsee the rules that we just kind of naturally behave according to. And so to me in lifestyle design, it's acknowledging and excavating those societal stories, whether they're based on gender or not. Most of them are, regardless of what your gender is. It's identifying and excavating the stories that everybody else has handed you, the life that everybody else around you has handed you, in order to uncover and design your own, right? And so most people live life according to everyone else. And they're probably surrounded by people who love them and who are very well-meaning and who just want the best for them. And so they inadvertently give off their own fears, beliefs, stories, and they make assumptions about how life is going to be for you. And they treat you as if your life is going to follow the same trajectory. But we're all different.
Yeah.
All our lives are different. Generations are different. I mean, look what's happened in the last couple of years in the world, right? Everything's different.
Everything. Yeah.
Everybody's quitting and people are moving. None of my friends live in the same cities they did 3 years ago. The environment changes, and therefore people in the environment change. And so the piece of lifestyle design I really love is that I have backgrounds in counseling, design thinking, psychology, behavior analysis, manifestation, and the neuroscience behind meditation, and all of these other things. And so I can create that custom experience for whatever you are going through at this time. And it takes looking back. Tell me about when you're growing up. That's the exploration, excavation, right? And so I love just walking side by side with people and kind of like linking arms and being like, this is going to be scary. It's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But so what, right? My constant response when people are like, that's scary, I'm not sure, this is coming up for me. And it's like, okay, so what? You talk about empowering and disempowering. This is coming up for me, and therefore that's bad, and therefore I'm wrong, and therefore I don't want to talk about it, right? And it's like, whoa, that's a really big snowball. What if we say, this is coming up for me, and wow, that's cool. Like, I don't like how this feels at all, right? We can say that we don't like how something feels without letting it derail us and then stick our head back in the sand. And so lifestyle design to me is really excavating all of that and saying, okay, here's what you've been given. What's true for you? Right? It could have been completely true for the people that gave it to you at the time that they raised you that way, in society and all that. What's true for you? And it's figuring that out. And then the most important piece is, how do we take the new person that you have designed and created? Because you're not even just taking things out of the air, right? It's just who you really are. It has to come from inside. I worked with people that are these like crazy, famous, creative people. And they're like, I just want to be centered in this black and white, rigid person and organized. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
That's not who you are. And you can become that person, but you're really just playing a part. And then 5 years down the road, you're going to go, well, I thought I wanted to be this person, but I'm not happy. Well, of course you're not, because that's not who you are. And when I bring people back to, why did you think you had to be so different? It was, well, this person, right? Society or this boss or this professor made me feel like I had to be different. And so there's a lot of uncovering and architecting going on, which is what I love.
No, I love that. It's like, to me, what came up is it's really about creating an intentional belief system. Like really taking inventory of, why do you believe the things you believe about yourself? And then also, why do you believe the things you believe about yourself in relationship to other things, whether it's love, relationship, money, career, body, children, where you live, how you wear your hair, how much you should weigh, like X, Y, and Z. It's really just like you said, exploring and excavating. What is it that I believe at my core? Why do I believe it? Are these actually my beliefs? And do I have to continue to choose to believe it? And then you can go on and say, I choose to believe I'm allowed to be creative, or I'm allowed to not be creative, or I'm allowed to look this way. I'm allowed to love who I love. I'm allowed to speak my mind. And just like you said, once you get to that intentional belief system, you're able to have that belief system be rooted in who you are authentically. Who's your higher self? Who's your authentic self? What do you like? What do you don't like? What do you want? What do you not want? Because a lot of times our thoughts aren't even our own. Just like you said, they've been planted there by usually very well-meaning people who are just operating from their own autopilot belief system that was probably installed by well-meaning people in their childhood, right? And we're just perpetuating that when nobody stops and it's like the essence of mindfulness. Why do I think this? Where did this thought come from? And does it have to be true for me? Or what else, or what could be true for me? And it's like exactly what we were talking about earlier. It's the curiosity. Well, why do I think I have to have a thigh gap? It sounds funny, but when you get at that core of things, why do I think I have to have this mansion in Malibu in order to be successful? Why do I think I need to have a rock on my hand in order to be worthy and deserving of love? Where did that belief come from? And do I have to continue to believe something that does not actually serve the highest expression of who I am? So I absolutely love the work that you're doing. You're really breaking it down for people. And then also what came up for me when you were talking, which I think is such a powerful question to ask, is, you were saying people like, it's scary to look at it. Yeah, it is scary. And sometimes you're going to cry and it's going to hurt and it's going to suck and all of these things. But what came up for me when you were talking is, but what's scarier? Meeting this moment of seeing all the muck, of seeing all the beliefs, of seeing the self-sabotage, of seeing all of this stuff, or staying stuck and never actually fulfilling the potential that you were given for your life. What is the scarier thought? And for me, it is so much scarier to stay stuck for your entire life than to meet this moment and do the work and come out on the other side more empowered, more of who you are, and more feeling fuckless.
Well,
leave the fucks behind.
Just leave them behind. It's like you're carrying a backpack of bricks for your whole life, and you're like, I just want to get rid of the bricks. It's like, so put the backpack down and walk away from it. And easier said than done, I get it. But all the questions that you just mentioned of like, where did this come from? Is this true for me? These are all the exact exercises in the book. Like, at the end of every chapter, I ask the same questions because it's that way of thinking, that scientific way of thinking. Mm-hmm. Is it true for me? Is it mine? You know, and this isn't a book about how to be a woman or what it means to be a woman. It's if you want to get married and have 80 children and be subservient and serve your husband and have a traditional marriage and move to the suburbs and that's happy and fulfilled and it comes from here, amazing. Like, go get after that life. If you want to give up being a CEO and leave your marriage and not have children and raise dogs and be in the city and like have an artist loft, and that comes from somewhere real, go do that. And I think the origin of our desires is really, really important because our origin is typically media, society, parents, you know, everyone else except us, because women are taught that we can't trust ourselves.
100%. I know for me, like, I've never wanted to be a mother. It's nothing. I can't even in my mind. I'm a very visual person. I cannot in my mind even create an image of myself as a mother. I've never had that fantasy. I've never had that vision. I've never had that desire. And growing up, everyone always tried to make me dismiss my own intuition. Like, oh, well, when you reach this age, you're going to want kids. Just wait. Oh, when you meet the right guy, you're going to want kids. Like somehow this magical phantom person out there is going to make me realize I've been wrong about myself my entire life. And, you know, I still don't want kids and it's fine. And then you get all of these, you know, societal, you know, sort of signals that there's something wrong with you because you decide to listen to yourself rather than to them. Like, oh, well, why do you hate kids?
It's like you're a witch.
Exactly. I'm like, what? Because I don't want to have children. Somehow that equates to I hate children. Like, what? No, I love kids. Oh, but you're so good with them, and I want to give them back. Like, what is the point? Like, I'm good at a lot of things. Like, I'm good at, you know, skiing. Doesn't mean I want to go to the Olympics. Like, relax. You know? Yeah. So I love what you're doing because, again, I think a part of the work that you're doing with your book and with your coaching with your clients, and we talked about it before, is learning to trust yourself above everybody else and remembering that you are the authority on you. Yeah. Not Instagram, not your family, not your friends, not society, but you. When you get to the point where you say, I am actually the authority on me. What is it that Candy wants? What is it that Candy doesn't want? What is it that Candy likes? What is it that she dislikes? You know, when you realize you're the authority on you, I think it really eliminates a lot of unnecessary suffering because we do a lot of things because we have given, it's like so cliche, but it's true. You give away your power. You give away the authority to choose and decide for yourself. So I'm going to give away. Oh, go ahead. You go.
Sorry.
No, you go.
What comes into my mind is the downside to that of whenever I say, and I'm working with clients and they want something, they'll say, well, yeah, but, and it's always somebody else in the environment isn't going to love it and reward the shit out of them for it. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, origin, where does that come from? And we talk about it. And what I always point out is that, look, if you live from your inside and your origin is purely the authentic you and your knowing and truth, and it doesn't work out, which I don't really even believe in anymore. It didn't go the way that you planned in your rigid human mind, right? And you can't see it yet. It didn't go the way that you planned. At least you can take accountability for that. But when you start saying, well, I've lived life for everyone else around me and I did all the right things that everybody else wanted me to do and I'm still not happy, you can't go to, like, where are those people now, right? Like, around you, be like, oh, don't worry, I'll bail you out, and like, I'll buy you a house, or I'll make you happy, and like,
Yep.
you wanted to go to the study in Sorbonne, 20 years ago. Now I'm going to pay for you to go. Like, nobody's going to take responsibility. They're all going to say, but it's your life. We just forced you. You know what I mean? And it's not because they're malicious, horrible people. It's because your life is yours.
Exactly.
And those people, you can't turn around and blame those people after 20 years for something that you followed, right? People I have so many different friends. Some are very analytical, some are very emotional, some are very spiritual. And I'll take the same challenge to everybody. There's no way I can take everybody's advice because it's so different. But whatever resonates with me, I'm like, yeah, that. Thank you for giving me the thought and the words to that, because I was in an emotional space. That's me. That resonates with me. I want to do that. And if it doesn't work out, I can at least take the accountability and say, well, that's the choice I made. It resonated from a good spot, and I can trust it because something else is coming because of it, right? The worst decisions I've made are from friends that tell me something and it's based on their own logic or whatever. And so I follow it, and the guy ends up being the worst, or like, job is not fulfilled. It's never a good thing. And I'm like, well, but you told me to. And I'm like, Gia, you're 40. Like, you don't say this anymore. Like, this isn't anybody else's fault. You should know by now.
100%.
Own it and move on. Like, it's fine. Stop listening to everyone else. Recruit your advisory board of people in life and see what resonates with you, because you're the only person at the end of the day that has to live your life, and nobody's like waiting on your deathbed with a medal like, congratulations, you did it everyone else's way, we're so proud of you. Like,
exactly. No, I love that. And I think what came up for me when you were talking is when we redefine what accountability means. It's like we were saying before, like, curiosity is a compassionate way to do it. I think sometimes people think accountability means it's your fault. So I think sometimes we will even, not do what we really want to do out of the fear of, well, if I follow what my heart is saying, if I follow what my intuition is saying, and it, like you said, doesn't work out, then I'm going to look like an idiot. I'm going to look like a fool. It's going to be my fault. I'm going to be a failure. Like, they're all going to laugh at you, in the mind, because we still are putting how we define what failure or not working out or being accountable means. So it's even a way to sort of protect ourselves, even though it's self-sabotage, to protect ourselves from any disappointment. So if I say, well, my mom told me to go into med school, my sister said this, my best friend, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, and it doesn't work out, then instead of saying, well, it was my fault, it was on me, it was my decision, well, it didn't work out because you said to do it. It didn't work not because I'm not good enough. No, it didn't work out because you told me to do it. So I even think it's almost this way where our minds and our brains are even trying to like trick us into like, it's the trick way to protect ourselves, where it's like, we're going to make a decision, and just in case it doesn't work out, well, I have an easy way to blame another person, rather than having to look at myself and say, and be self-aware and take accountability. Because when we believe that accountability means fault, or that something not working out means failure, those are big, scary feelings, and those are big, scary thoughts that we don't want to feel, because at the core, it means we're not enough, we're inadequate, blah, 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 blah. But when you say accountability actually means, just like you're saying, I'm accountable, I am empowered, and I'm resilient, and I know that I can make a choice. And whether or not it works out in this particular moment, that is not a referendum or an indication of my worthiness or my value or any of that. It's just information that doing it this particular way worked out this particular way. And if I want a different result, then let me take this information, rejigger it, blah, 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 blah. It's like why super successful people, again, what we're talking about, they are not actually attached to the result. They don't think that if this result doesn't happen, it means I am not worthy, I'm not good enough, my vision sucks, I'm a failure. They just say, oh, that's what happened? Okay, now let's do something else. And then they keep going and going and going and going and going. That's how you get the Steve Jobs of the world, right? So I just love what you're saying. And like, of course, Steve Jobs at this big, big macro level, but in the microcosm of our own lives, that's how we get internal peace. That's how we get personal success and fulfillment, is having that detachment to the result. Doesn't mean I'm not worthy. It just means I did something a certain way, didn't get the desired result, and now I'm just going to move on and do the next thing, you know?
Yeah, that's that non-attachment, right? It's the experimentalist way of living of, well, I tried that and I liked it or I didn't, or I liked these pieces of it. I hated that job, but I did love this one piece of it. And that's really important to me. And I didn't know that before. Or, you know, I mean, I'm 40 years old. I've lived like 25 lives at this point, right? And you've got to be
Love it.
You've got to be able to like rinse and repeat. And anybody that knows me is like, I never know where you're living. I know you wrote a book. Oh, that's so you. What's it about? And you just kind of like saunter through life. And when, you know, I've been doing press for 6 months now about the book.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love it. And so and people try and glamorize it, right? Oh, look, and now, you know, like now, you know, you're a successful person and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no.
No.
At the time, I didn't want to be alive anymore. And I was taking naps on my kitchen floor because 20 feet away seemed like a very long journey. I've been there, right? And so I think we glamorize success, or, you know, and it's social media, and, you know, I mean, you're in the industry. You see I've lived in LA. I've lived all over the place, and you know, producers on shows and all this. I'm like, you guys, reality TV isn't really reality. Like all my friends live here, and they're like, what? It's not? I'm like, no.
It's literally called scripted reality. It's not even called reality TV anymore. It's literally called scripted.
A lot of people don't know that. And so they're like, oh no, this is so real. And I'm like, it's not. Like, there's so many illusions, right? And so I think being a little bit more awakened to the illusions in our own lives, what stories were given to us about how things had to be, I think it's a little earth shattering. But if you can look at it as like, I'm shaking up these stories in order to live a way more interesting life beyond the bounds of what was given to me, that's exciting. Like, that's adventure, you know? And so I always think it's really important to tell people, if you want that life, go get it. And it's going to be the harder way. But I can tell you, after doing this many times and rinsing and repeating, like, life isn't linear, it's layered. And so I have my layers of like not wanting to be alive anymore for real, and losing my dad, and losing my job, and losing my dog, and so much. And it's an ebb and flow. It's a rise and fall. And so, you know, I always talk to people and they say, well, it's scary and I don't have it in me or whatever. I said, that's fine. I'm not trying to guide or facilitate or change anybody's life design by force, because that's inauthentic. But ask yourself, what if I stay the course? What if I stay in this relationship? What if I don't give this need that's been tugging at me a chance to live and to thrive and to see the light of day? What happens if I stay in this job for 20 years where I know I'm not meeting my potential? It's like being pecked to death by a duck, right? Like, you're technically safer in the moment, but over time, it's a lot less healthy and a lot less fulfilling. So if you could just go at what you want, and if you fall on your face, you're like, well, at least I know I don't have to spend 20 years hedging and looking to anybody else and waiting for someone to just push me off the edge. I can take control and empower myself to learn and to make sure my origin is in the right place, and saunter off. You know, like, we teach men to be like conquistadors and like, go do it.
Get it. Yeah.
We're like, wait, you're a girl, you're a female. So like, hold back a little bit and like wait for everybody else to tell you it's okay. And no, like, I'm like, get out there, go for it, put your backpack on, take everything with you, you know, go conquer the day, go run some experiments.
No, I love it. And like, just like you said, like, men define failure differently. They'll like fail, and then it's like, that's why there's a concept of like failing up for men, you know, where it's just like they failed and it's like, attaboy, you're still going to get the promotion because you tried, you know? So it's like, who gets to fail up and who doesn't get to fail up, you know?
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason why. And it's like, you kind of want that mentality. Like, I can fail up. I could go out and do something and have it be a failure and still realize that's actually just one step closer to what that big yes is, to what that big glory, quote unquote, success is. It's just a stepping stone. So just like you said, when you change that mindset of, how am I defining what failure is and means, that means do you go through life joyful and expectant that anything that happens is actually just in service of the next level, or this failure, this, whatever the case may be, is actually saying like what my value and worth is, and then you kind of go below. And thank you so much for sharing parts of your story about like being on the floor and napping and not wanting to be here. I think if everyone's being honest, we've all had some form of that type of experience in life. And I kind of think if you have it, you're not really present, you're not really showing up, you're kind of just numbing it out and phoning it in. I think a part of the human experience is that sort of, I don't know what the correct term is, I hope I'm saying it right, it's like the dark night of the soul. I hope that's right. I hope I'm not saying something that's like weird or anything. But wait a minute, I don't know. I was like, wait. But what I mean by that is sort of like, that darkness that we sometimes go through that really pushes us into like the next level of realizing our resiliency as human beings, our ability to adapt and to grow and to learn, and our ability to change. I do think that yes, we can get to that next level of consciousness through joy, but I think usually it happens through suffering. And it's in the suffering that we actually have the realization, we actually have the discernment, we actually have that moment. Usually it's when we're on the kitchen floor, and we're like, I don't want to be here anymore. And then you get that whisper or that moment that says, no, keep going, it'll be okay. And then when you're able to like maybe crawl a little bit, and then you're maybe walking a little bit. And then one day you wake up and you're like, oh, wow, today I can run, and it's like really that. And then when you look back on everything that you've gone through, you can say, wow, like, look what that experience gave me, and I think that's really what it is. And you're 100% right, especially in like the creative world where it's like, oh, look at my podcast, look at my book. But people don't realize what it took to get that. They don't see the guts and the blood and the tears and the loneliness and the isolation and the confusion and the wanting to give up to get this like shiny object that they now all want to celebrate. But they don't want to either go through that, or they don't even understand what it took to get it. I think of it as like professional athletes, right? We go to the Olympics, we go to the game, and it's big and it's amazing, and they are like gazelles. They're just doing the layups, and they're just
so easy,
wow, so easy and effortless. But we weren't there for the hours and the hours and the hours of the practice, of the broken bones, of the sore muscles, of the waking up early, of the missing out, of all of the stuff that it took to make it look effortless. It takes a lot of effort to make something look effortless.
And sacrifice.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that really resonated with me, and I know it's going to resonate with people watching and listening as well.
Good. And you are very welcome. Yeah, I think there's a lot of power in story, and I'm happy to share my successful journey, and I'm even happier to share the times that weren't so successful or pretty, and that were very messy, because that's how you get there. People are like, I want to write a book, I want to start a company, I want to do all these things done. It's like, okay, well, here's my story, and that can't scare you. You have to be able to kind of soldier through. And it doesn't mean hustle culture. It doesn't mean ruining your well-being. It doesn't mean, whatever. It means being clear on what you want, and loving something, whether it's a book, a company, relationship, city. Do you love it enough to obtain it? Some of us get really lucky, but a lot of us work really hard. We gotta love working really hard on whatever we're working on, right? When people are like, I just want to make $1 million, and so I think I'm just going to do this. I'm like, do you love that? And they're like, well, no, I'm going to make a lot of money. And I'm like, not if you nowadays doing something you don't love. You're going to burn out in 3 months, or like fall over from a heart attack. You're not going to be happy. The juice is not going to be worth the squeeze. And so, this is all part of the do what you love lifestyle.
100%. And I love that you brought that up, because to me, it's almost like the hustle versus the flow. So it's like when you're in that hustle mode, no, it's almost like the hamster wheel. And honestly, when you're in hustle mode, usually no matter what you do, it's not going to work. Or it'll work, but you can't sustain it.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable, because to me, the hustle mentality, the toxic #boss babe, I can't stand that stuff. I think it's so toxic. It, just like you said, it's rooted in other. I'm doing this to prove to others. I'm doing this because of others. I'm hustling because I want to get the $1 million to prove to other people, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. But when you're in your flow, you could work all day long, but it doesn't feel like a struggle. Like, to me, a hustle is like that struggle. Like, we're in the struggle, and it's just like, I don't want to struggle. You know, it's like I'm doing this to not struggle. I'm confused, right? Yeah. So versus like being in what the flow is, and then when you're in the flow, you could work all day, but it's fulfilling and it's giving back to you, and you're in your flow. And I even say that to my friends. We're like, oh, you're hustling. I was like, no, I'm in my flow, guys, because words matter. Words are important. Words matter. Yes. Energy matters. Intention matters. And it's like, where is the intentionality? When I'm in my flow, I know it's coming from my inner self. I know it's coming from my higher self. I know it's coming from me, because I am like, oh, I can't wait to do this. I can't wait to blah, 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 blah. It's like, it's so like with my podcast, like when I get to interview, beautiful souls like you, and we get to connect and talk, this is so much fun for me. Like, I am like jamming out. I'm in my flow. I'm learning. I'm sharing. Like, I love it. It's like, it doesn't feel like work. But when I've had other jobs, other things I'm doing, even though I'm doing it like as entrepreneur or whatever you want to call it, it's soul sucking and I'm not happy about it, and I'm not joyful, and it's not fun, and it's just for the check, or it's just for whatever, and it just doesn't feel good. Yeah. And so you're right. There is this inherent difference between the hustle mentality or being in the flow of your purpose.
And one is way better than the other. And it feels way different. Like, even my, I have an employee well-being company, and I was like, we're behavior scientists, and we evaluate dimensions of culture in organizations. And I really want people to know the complexity that is human behavior and culture. Mm-hmm. And I started thinking like that, and I'm like, I just feel like there's so much resistance in my own mind. And then when I say, well, what if we came from a well-being perspective of create happiness and peace and flow and joy by doing the exact same thing? Yeah. Thinking about it differently, I'm like, that's where I'm meant to shine. Like, that is always where I've been meant to be, is helping people see truth and to see through the noise and to see what's really there, to a root problem, a root cause, what's really there, truth, knowing, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to improve it, right? And then we're going to consciously, intentionally redesign your life, your culture, your business, whatever it is. And I will say, after probably 3 years, mm-hmm. September 8th was the anniversary of my father's passing, 2 years.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, thank you. And he was 85 when he passed, and led a good life, and like saw Frank Sinatra and like Miami, and had this amazing life. But he was a very successful entrepreneur and did everything. Yeah. And I woke up that morning and I was like, I woke up before my 2 dogs, which never happens. We're all like farting, and I'm like, I don't want to wake up like this. And I woke up at 5 a.m. and I was like, beep. And I could not stay in bed. My dogs were like cuddly, and like it was dark out, and I like slunk out of bed, and I had to be at my kitchen table on my laptop creating courses. Yeah. Like, I wanted to like primal scream and like take up space and like just do something insane and outrageous to like mark that moment of, I am back. Like, this is my flow. And people are like, oh, 5 o'clock in the morning, like, don't get up, don't work too hard. I'm like, no, it's not work. Yeah. This is coming from an origin that I am designed for. And I'm going to put out way better content and write a way better article than if I went back to sleep and came back in a couple hours. it's just gone. Right. And so it's like allowing yourself to move and that flow. Right. I love that concept so much. And I mean, I've made a career out of helping people find that and give themselves permission to believe in that's possible for them. There's nothing better than that.
No, you're so spot on, and you're so right. It reminds me of, I had to learn that myself, where I kept telling myself, oh no, like you're working too much. You need to take the Saturday off. You need to take the Sunday off. Like I was boxing myself into that very rigid Monday through Friday you work, Saturday, Sunday you take off, these many hours, when I actually wanted to work. I wanted to create. I wanted to write. I wanted to do whatever, blah, 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 blah. But I was conditioning myself and judging myself. It wasn't from a place of compassion. It wasn't like, oh, it wasn't from a place of like actual self-care, where it's like, you know what, Candy, like maybe you need to like rest and just like chill and like, you know, reinvigorate yourself. No, it was like I was judging myself for not following societal work standards, when the whole reason why I wanted to be an entrepreneur was because I didn't have to not do that. So it was, you know what I mean? But I was like judging myself. I was like, no, you need to take these weekends off. You need to stop working at this time, like blah, 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 blah. And it wasn't a burnout thing. And I had to like, and I was talking to this woman who I really look up to. She's great. She's like this fantastic coach. And I was telling her about it. And she was like, no, girl. She's like, you sound like me when I was younger. She's like, no, like, you can't let anything outside of you dictate what brings you happiness and joy in that moment. She's like, it's maybe work, but to you, it's not work. Like you're happy, you're fulfilled, you're creating, you know, you have ideas, and you're not in the hustle mode, you're in the flow mode. And she was like, you just have to listen to yourself. And sometimes you have to also tell yourself no, because it was a part of myself that was judging myself. And I had to tell the part of me that was judging me, no, I choose not to believe you. Yeah. I choose not to believe the part of me that is judging me under the guise of self-care, because it actually wasn't, because it was going against what I actually wanted to do. And sometimes we'll have those moments where, you know, parts of us, parts of our schema, parts of our mind will sabotage us under the guise of, well, you know, you really should take a break right now, but I don't really want to. You know what I mean?
What am I doing? Just which direction am I going in? And when I'm in the tug of war, I'm always in my analytical mind.
Yeah.
My body will tell me when I'm tired. It's like
100%.
When I was writing Fuckless, I would take myself to Northern California.
Oh, yay.
Like 12 days. Yeah. I would go to like Aptos, Capitola. I would go to all these different places and write. And I would write and write and write and write. And then all of a sudden, I would read a sentence that was pure trash. And I was like, I'm done for the day. This is all great. I wrote for 5 hours and I was in flow. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, and I'm reading this and I'm like, nope, this is trash. Like, I'm not going to force it. I'm not going to do anything. I need to close my laptop and I'm going to go for a hike in the redwoods. I'm going to go to the beach and go for a run or whatever. And so it's managing yourself. Again, that origin, right? My body will tell me when I need a break. And this is another thing. It's like we tell women that we can't trust ourselves. We have to listen to everyone else because everyone else knows better. I know when I'm producing good work and when I'm producing trash. I know when I feel like I am receiving energy instead of losing energy, right? I'm always saying, is this giving me energy or is this taking energy? And so I always want to do things to fill my energy because I need it for all the things that I do that I really care about. Yep. And so is this giving or depleting my energy? And I think getting into our own bodies as a female intuition, right? We just know. We don't have to explain it to anybody else. It doesn't matter if other people understand it. If I want to work 15-hour days and I can go to bed happy and like that good kind of tired, like I love that. I'm 40 years old. I don't have children by design. I'm not married anymore by design, right? Everything is intentional because, you know, Fuckless was, I gave birth for 2 years and 7 months, right? Like I was tired, but I was good kind of tired.
Yeah.
So I talked to some of my mom friends and they're like, no, that's that's a creative process. That's a female thing, right? To create.
Yeah.
Books, companies, empires, homes, like whatever you're creating, we do get in that flow space with that creativity. And so I
100%.
totally agree with you. By like putting a cork in it,
Yeah.
it just slaps that intuitive creative nature in the face.
100%. And creation is like the epitome of like feminine, like divine feminine energy. Like that is what it is at its core. And like a couple things when you were talking 100% about the body, it reminds me of like when we're little, right? Like say you start going to pre-K or school and you're like really, really young, you're like 4 or 5, and you have to use the restroom. We are taught to ask for permission. But our body knows when we need to use the restroom. Our body knows when we need to like relieve ourselves or take a beat. But we're taught to get external validation to approve or disapprove what our body is already telling us what we need. So even like those little things, we're being so conditioned that my body is telling me one thing, but I need to look outside of me to co-sign how I feel. I need someone outside of me to validate how I feel. You know?
Co-signing. Yeah, I love that word, the co-signing.
Yep.
You know, and after, I've talked to so many people since the book was come out, and they're like, but I'm trying to be fuckless, but I can't. How do I break past these things? And it's like, do the work, in the book. And it does take going past that point of getting everybody else to understand. Like you're not like going on murderous rampages. Like you're not hurting anybody. You're doing this all for out of self-care, self-love and it can be also to be a better mom, a better partner, a better friend, like whatever. In addition to, I need this, I know this. I love that co-signing word. And I also love that word because, you're a language girl like me. Self-authorship.
Yes.
Self-author our own lives and
100%.
And to architect and to have that that ownership, I think is really important because nobody's life is perfect, but it's yours. Your life will never be perfect, but it's yours. Only you can build your life. Like that's so amazing to me, and we can look at everybody else around us and be like, well, I could produce a TV show, I bet, or like, when I started the entrepreneurial journey, I'm like, good idea for a shoe company. And I'm like, no, that is not one of genius. Stop. Like, write your book, start your company. And it's just, it's like, you get so excited. It's like a drug, right? And so, especially in the creative spaces. But I believe anything, even if you're like an accountant, I can't do math, so I'm jealous of people who can. So I bring on accountants. But it's not like a sexy creative job, but you can bring creativity and self-authorship to that career or to any type of lifestyle you want.
100%. And it's really just all about alignment and integrity too. I think it's about alignment and integrity where is what am I being called in my inner knowing, in my inner being, and my purpose and my passion? Is that actually in alignment with what is happening externally? What I'm actually doing, the choices I'm actually making, the career I actually have, the relationship I have. Because to me, that's where the discontent, the unhappiness, the suffering comes from when who you are is not in alignment with who you be out there. And that's when your life is, you're not living in integrity. What you really know to be true for you is not actually what the truth that you're living of yourself. That's why you're 100% right. You could be that accountant and be totally happy because that particular accountant is living in alignment with what makes them happy. They're in their flow and they're crunching that numbers. Wouldn't be my life, but you know what I mean? But like, would it be me? But, and it's almost like, some jobs that people kind of like look down upon. I don't personally do this, but like, some people like, oh, like a bus driver or like a maintenance man or a grocery person or like, like when people are like all uppity and just drowning in their own ego. But then you can look at those people and they are some of the happiest people. They're jamming out. They're like, hey girl, how's your day? Oh, whatever, checking you out. The bus driver's like, hey, good morning. Like whatever it is. because they're living in their purpose. They're not driving a bus. They are helping people get to from their homes to their houses, from where they are to maybe to visit somebody in the hospital, from where they are to their job where they can now go make money to provide for their family, to go see their children. Like they see the purpose and the value that they provide that's outside of the mechanics of what they do.
And
So
it's not
yeah,
tied to their own ego, right? They're not making a ton of money.
exactly.
Where people are like, really, tell me more about that.
Yep.
There's actually research behind this. They interviewed like hospital staff they're going in, they're cleaning their rooms and making sure everything's sanitary. And I believe it was from Adam Grant. I think he did this study, maybe not, don't quote me. Okay. But they talked to the hospital workers and they kind of identified like who are the happy, healthy ones who love their job and who weren't. And they're all doing the same job. And the happiest, healthiest people were like, I love my job so much because this person has been on life support for a month or has not been able to get out of bed or whatever. And they go in and they would like rearrange the flowers and they'd walk in and be like, oh, this room has been like this forever. And they would move a picture and move a vase and they would like construct the room so that the person woke up, or like when the person could finally like get out of bed or whatever, they woke up to a nice room. Like that's purpose and meaning outside of yourself. And
100%.
Who are worth tens of millions of dollars who do not feel that way about what they do. They cannot tie what they do to other people. They tie it to like, well, what I'm doing. And they get kind of, it's hard to watch. But that's also why, money isn't everything. It's nice. It's not everything. And if you can earn it doing something you love, then all the better. So yeah, it's all about mindset, really.
100%. And thank you so much for this time. We're going to bring it in. But what you were saying about that to me brought up the difference between purpose and passion, right? So like passion is what you do for you. What brings you joy, what makes you happy, and purpose is what you do for others. And that sweet spot is when you can be passionate about what you do, but it's rooted in the purpose of serving others. So, that's really that sweet spot. And I think that we can do things that are purposeful, they give back to people, but maybe we're not passionate about it. If I'm an accountant, I'm serving a purpose, I'm helping people, but it's not rooted in my passion. Yeah. Or you could totally be passionate about something, but what value do you give? Who are you serving? How is it rooted in a higher purpose? So that to me, that sweet spot is how does my passion be in service of other people? And it's okay for them to not. Like you talked about reality TV. I am so passionate about Bravo. Like, don't even get me started on the Housewives, like all of them. Like, it's a situation, okay? But that's my passion. That's for me. I'm going to gossip and jam out and spill the tea and get all crazy because that's what gives me up. Is that for anybody else? No, it's for me. But, other things I do are in service of others. And I think when people are clear on, is this my passion? Is this my purpose? Is this my passion that is rooted in my purpose? Yeah. And then you can figure out what buckets make the best sense. Gianna, this was amazing. You are such a light. And before we wrap up this beautiful episode, I have 2 questions for you. One, what is the last piece of wisdom or insight, either something we have discussed or something new that you really want to make sure that we hear and receive during our time together? And 2, everyone watching and listening, everything will be linked in the show notes in the description box where you can connect with Gianna, where you can buy Fuckless and all her other fabulous things, but also tell us where we can go as well.
Perfect. So one shining light of wisdom. Just one?
Just one. Or 2 if you feel inclined.
Yeah. I would say that I have been really, really happy and fulfilled in my life. And I've been really, really unhappy and unfulfilled. And I think if you take anything away as a listener or viewer here, it's really to just buttress everything that we've talked about that makes you happy. It has to originate from a pure place inside you. And I know that sounds cheesy and tacky, and you've heard it 100 times, but you've heard it 100 times because it's true. And excavating that and finding that and holding it close to you and making it happen in your own life. If you're not going to start that now, when will you? And I can tell you, no matter how hard it is worth it. It is worth it. And you can find me at Gianna Biscontini on Instagram. And I'm also on LinkedIn. I actually took a really long time off of social media to really focus on human design, manifesting, energy, like all of that. Yeah. And so I only have those 2 platforms. You can also visit my website at giannabiscontini.com. Workwell is W3RKWELL.com. That's my well-being company for work. And Fuckless is anywhere you can find books, but mostly on Amazon, and you can read all the reviews there.
Yay! Thank you so much, Gianna. This was amazing. And don't forget, everyone watching and listening, everything will be linked below, so you just can click on it and find everything. So thank you so much, Gianna.
Thank you.
Yeah. And don't forget, guys, to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share this with a friend, because your journey to self-love and self-worth is always better with a little bit of support. And you can always reach out to me directly. You can either email me or DM me, and I will get back to you. And don't forget to check out everything in the description box and the show notes. We have coaching, we have courses, we have merch, we have all of the fun things and some really great freebies. So until next time, everybody, you know the drill. Take care of yourself and each other. I love you. Bye.
Welcome to Sugar Pills, a practical guide to self-care, where your host, writer, actor, and producer Candy Washington helps you live a more joyful life with a cheeky dash of pop culture news. Be sure to subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and join the conversation on Instagram at Candy Washington. Let's go.